Welcome back to the deep dive. We take your stack of sources, the articles, the fan discussions, the whispers, and distill them into the only conversation you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we are undertaking a bit of a geographical shift.
We are indeed.
We're moving the focus away from the, well, let's call it the constant drama of Old Trafford and heading south, all the way to the Bay of Naples.
To Naples, where we find ourselves discussing, of all people, a very familiar face, Scott McTominay, who, according to all our sources, has become nothing short of a bona fide hero in that famous Napoli blue.
It's the classic football narrative, isn't it? An academy lad, someone who spent years battling away at Manchester United, and now he's just absolutely thriving somewhere else.
And that success, as it always does, is sparking just immense and I think sometimes quite painful debate among the faithful back home.
Oh, the chatter is deafening. It's gone into complete overdrive, especially after he recently put in a truly instrumental performance for them.
The one that got them into the final.
Exactly. A crucial goal, a vital assist. It just propelled Napoli forward. And, that kind of clutch performance, that impact, it was something we saw in flashes at United, but now it seems to be his steady state. He's just consistently delivering.
And that consistency, that clear uplift in his game, is the central tension we really have to get into in this deep dive. Because our sources, which are drawing heavily from all the fan discussions online, they're fixated on a recent media moment.
The interview.
The interview, yeah, where McTominay directly, and I have to say very elegantly, addressed that famous or maybe infamous United curse. You know the one.
Do players always get better after they leave Manchester United?
That's the one.
It is the ultimate catch-22 question for any ex-player, isn't it? If you say yes, you're slamming your old club. If you say no, you're kind of diminishing your own current success.
And the way he handled it.
Yeah.
Just a masterclass in diplomacy, genuinely.
So our mission today is, well, it's a bit complex. We're going to unpack this whole saga. We'll start with McTominay's character because that's where all the praise begins. Then we'll dissect that made-up narrative around ex-United players.
Then after that, we have to get into the tactics, the real nitty-gritty of why he was, so misprofiled at the club.
And finally, we'll look at what his success really tells us about the flawed decision-making at Manchester United right now. Right, let's get stuck in.
Let's do it.
So let's start with the emotional side of it, because that's where the sources are just so effusive. The overwhelming feeling is all about McTominay's character, especially now he's out of that immediate suffocating United bubble.
It's through the roof, the respect he's getting.
It really is.
It's striking, actually. The language in the fan discussions, it goes beyond just praise. It's almost reverence. Especially about his professionalism. He's constantly described as highly intelligent, a fighter, and, in that classic British way, just a top bloke.
And the interesting thing is, the admiration isn't really about some newfound technical ability, is it? Because that was always the big debate when he was at Old Trafford.
Not at all. It's far more about his resolute, just unwavering attitude. One source summed it up perfectly. They said his respect for the game, for his managers, for the club, it just knows no bounds.
And this isn't just fluffy praise after the fact, is it? Supporters are actively using him now as the definition of what a proper academy player should be, someone who gets the club's DNA.
He embodies everything a Manchester United player should be about. That's the quote you see over and over. A proper Manchester United academy player who gave his absolute all every single match, whether he was playing well or frankly having a shocker.
And here's the key phrase that just keeps coming up, which I think speaks volumes about the current environment at United. He never complained one bit, even when everyone now agrees he was being fundamentally misprofiled.
Just put his head down and did the job he was asked to do, even if it was the wrong job.
That silence, that stoicism, that's what seems to elevate him to this class act status for the fans. It points to this real maturity and aura, as some put it.
Exactly. But let's challenge that for a second, because this is where his character touches on the bigger structural problem. His professionalism is fantastic, of course, but does his uncomplaining nature, his willingness to do whatever the manager asked...
Did that make it easier for them to misuse him?
Precisely. Did it inadvertently make it easier for a succession of coaches to misuse him tactically for 6 whole years? If he'd been a bit more vocal, maybe demanded a specific role, would they have been forced to see his true skill set sooner?
That's a fascinating thought. So the very trait the club valued most, that unquestioning loyalty, might have actually stopped them from getting the best out of him.
He became the definition of a square peg in a round hole because he was just too disciplined to say, hang on, this hole is the wrong shape for me.
And that's why the fans now draw such stark comparisons between him, this mature, thoughtful adult, and other players who they see as, well, immature.
The sources use some pretty strong language here. They pit McTominay against others. They've labeled a little man-child or gobshites.
And they get very specific, don't they? It really shows how much this debate about character matters to the fan base, especially with academy talent. We see names like Alejandro Garnacho and Anthony Elanga coming up.
Yeah, players who some feel have maybe slandered the club or shown a bit of entitlement.
Right.
Garnacho was mentioned for having a proper sulk when he didn't get the number 7 shirt straight away.
Right.
Elanga, another academy lad, sometimes showed frustration when he wasn't starting. McTominay, though, he's seen as the traditional selfless graduate, the anti-diva.
And that contrast is just so stark when the club is clearly struggling for a cultural identity.
It really is. Even now, while he's banging in goals for Napoli, the fans still call him a servant of the club and respectful of the badge, even though he's wearing Napoli blue.
It's like his professionalism is acting as an ambassador for United from, what, 1,500 miles away?
It speaks to a really profound respect. And this all ties directly into the culture the club is supposedly trying to build now under the new structure. Fans are literally saying he is exactly what the club needs to cultivate.
That blend of loyalty, professionalism, hard work.
Yeah, and they're lamenting that the current squad only has a handful of players who show that same mentality.
It really highlights a bigger issue in the modern game, though. When a huge club like United is struggling, the easiest person to criticize is often the homegrown lad.
The one who's seen as blocking the path for some expensive new signing.
Exactly. But then, when that loyal player leaves and succeeds, that uncomplaining attitude suddenly becomes their greatest strength. And ironically, the benchmark for the culture the club should have protected all along.
It's incredible, isn't it? This is a player who a huge portion of the fan base wanted gone for years, criticized him relentlessly, and now they miss him desperately precisely because of his character.
They see him as invaluable to the culture they're trying to build.
The very same people who criticized his passing. The sources make a point of saying he was regularly slandered by his own fans and multiple fan channels, and yet he handled it all with complete class. It makes his success now feel not just earned, but vindicated.
That professionalism you mentioned, it leads us perfectly into the flashpoint moment, the interview. McTominay was put right on the spot with that career-defining catch-22 question.
About players improving after leaving United, yeah.
And this is where that intelligence that fans praise so much really came to the fore. The interview was with CBS Sports Golazo, an American outlet.
And the fans immediately saw it as a trap. They felt the interviewer was blatantly fishing for headlines.
Trying to put words into his mouth.
Exactly. Trying to generate negative, dramatic content about his old club. One fan even compared the style to a well-known British tabloid personality, which is, it's pretty high criticism.
It implies sensationalism over substance, that the press were just trying to refuel this toxic, ready-made story.
But Scott's response was just. It was lauded, precisely because it was so measured. It was, as one fan put it, universally praised for its eloquence and maturity. He just stopped the narrative dead.
Shut down all the drama.
Completely, with simple, objective truths.
So what was the core of that deflection? How did he manage to protect the club but also, acknowledge his own improvement?
The beauty was in the nuance. He didn't deny that players can improve after leaving, but he immediately shifted the blame away from the club as an institution.
Right, away from the training ground, the history, all of that.
Yeah, and he pointed it towards 2 other areas. Individual accountability and external factors like system fit. The sources say he softly criticized the players rather than the club. He subtly implied that those who fail after leaving maybe just lack the right mindset.
But hold on, didn't the sources also say that the fans, who were often desperate for a critique of the club hierarchy, didn't actually want him to protect the club?
That's the beautiful irony of it. He handled the PR moment perfectly for the club, but the supporters, who were so frustrated with the leadership, were actually hoping he'd land a blow against the management.
And he didn't. He stayed loyal.
Which only cemented his legendary status among them even further.
Yeah.
It was an amazing bit of emotional control.
The real genius of his defense, though, was challenging the whole premise. He basically asked the interviewer, what about all the other players who don't do as well? The ones whose careers just fade away? Why does no one talk about them?
And that is the crucial counter-narrative the sources are desperate to push. He pointed out that the media only focuses on the success stories, the Pogbas, the Lukakus, making it seem like players instantly become better once they're free.
When in reality, it ignores the huge number of players who leave United or any big club and just flatline.
Exactly. It's an easy narrative for the press because success stories generate clicks and outrage against the old club. Failures are just forgotten.
So let's dive into that fan debate then, this made-up narrative. The sources list a lot of counter-evidence, players who did improve or who fans think should have been kept. It's like a post-mortem of United's recent transfer strategy.
It is. It's a fascinating list of what-ifs. And you have to look at why each name comes up. You see players like Antony mentioned.
Right, but the counter-argument there is that his success was with Betis in a, quote, less physical league.
Which suited his specific skill set better. Yeah, it wasn't magic. It was just a better fit. Then you have Anthony Elanga,
Who, the sources admit, was given the right role for his limited skill set at his new club.
That's the key, isn't it? Elanga is all about pace and direct running. At United, he was asked to do more complex link-up play. Elsewhere, he was just told to run in behind. It's pure system fit, not some magical liberation from a curse.
Then there's Lukaku. Fans say he carried on being good, implying he was just scapegoated at United.
Lukaku is a great example. The argument is he was already world-class. Leaving didn't make him better, he just continued to be good. Same with players like Darmian or Andreas Pereira, who found their level at clubs like Inter and Fulham.
They were just good professionals who didn't suit the chaos at Old Trafford.
And the big one, the one that always comes up, is Dean Henderson,
Yeah.
the goalkeeper.
Her fans feel should have got a chance as the clear number one.
Instead of being stuck behind an aging De Gea. Yeah. And then there are the academy lads who just needed a chance. Angel Gomes, James Garner, Alvaro Carreras, they're held up as proof that United is too quick to discard talent.
But the rebuttal to that is pretty strong too, isn't it? To keep it balanced, the sources argue that when you look at the total number of players who've left in the last decade,
And it's a vast number.
only a very small sample size actually improved in a major way.
Yes, the counter-argument is aggressive on this. It says many of the so-called successes like Gomes or Garner just got an opportunity they weren't getting at United, or they were being injured out anyway, like Smalling, Matic, or De Gea. Their departures were necessary.
There's even skepticism about the current loanees. The jury's still out on Rasmus Højlund, for example. And then there's a fascinating critique of Marcus Rashford.
Ah, yes, the cyclical performance pattern. This is maybe the best argument against the United curse idea. Some sources are asking if Rashford has truly improved, or if he's just having one of his cyclical good seasons that he used to have at United.
Predicting a dip might be coming.
Exactly. It's just a player's form isn't linear. It goes up and down, regardless of the club.
So the overall conclusion from the more measured fans is that this whole narrative is, well, made up. It's an easy excuse.
An excuse that ignores a million factors involved. And those factors are what McTominay's interview so brilliantly highlighted. System fit, mindset, form, injuries, media bias, and just plain luck. He was lauded because he shifted the conversation back to the reality of football.
Handled a difficult PR moment with world-class class.
Spot on.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We've established McTominay is a top character, a true red. He handled the media brilliantly, but it still leaves that massive tactical question. If he was this good, why did his career only properly flourish after he left Old Trafford?
This is the operational heart of the matter, isn't it?
It is.
And the fan analysis here is crystal clear. For years, McTominay was constantly criticized and fundamentally misprofiled.
You're completely unified on this point.
Totally. He was always deployed as defensive midfielder, a DM, or a central midfielder, a CM, forced into that deep-lying, screening double pivot role.
Okay, you mentioned the double pivot. For anyone listening who might not be deep into tactical analysis, what exactly is that and what were its specific limitations for United?
All right, good question. So the double pivot is when you have two deep-lying central midfielders sitting just in front of your back four. At United, this was usually McTominay and Fred, or later Casemiro. The idea is security. They screen passes, win tackles, cover space.
But the problem was what they did with the ball.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Their primary limitation was distribution. Neither McTominay nor Fred had that elite passing range or the cool head to consistently break down a packed defense. They're runners and destroyers, not orchestrators.
Which meant the team struggled to move the ball from defense to attack.
Yeah, they'd get stuck. It forced them to rely on the wide players or just long balls.
And the most infamous version of that was the McFred duo. That partnership generated so much debate.
Well, immense division. On one hand, you had fans saying him and Fred was the most dreadful pairing I have ever seen, saying McTominay used to hide from passes.
But on the other hand,
You have the crucial counterpoint. The fans who point out they finished higher in the league with them than the current pairing.
and that's a really specific point, how can a dreadful pairing produce better results?
Because they were, and this is a great phrase from the sources, functional protectors in a dysfunctional system. They did the dirty work. They provided an engine and strength that papered over the cracks elsewhere.
So they were running around putting out fires started by other players.
Constantly. As one source said, they were always running their ass around to win the ball back straight after a teammate gave it away. They were a crude tool for chaos control, not a sophisticated midfield solution.
But everyone now agrees that playing deep was just not his natural game.
Not at all. His true profile isn't a deep-lying creator. He looks and moves like a DM because he's so tall and powerful. But his best position is, without a doubt, a box crasher.
An attacking midfielder, a cam.
With a lethal striker's finish.
Yeah.
His strength is timing his late runs into the box and finishing, not sitting deep and dictating play.
Let's just dig into the difference between those roles, the deep pivot versus the box crasher.
They require totally different skill sets. The pivot needs patience, spatial awareness, tidy passing under pressure. The box crasher needs explosive acceleration, instinct, timing.
And McTominay excels at the latter.
Absolutely. When he's deep, his weaknesses, taking an extra touch, a heavy first touch, are exposed. When he's surging forward into the box, those things don't matter. It's all about his power and his striking ability.
And the sources credit both Erik ten Hag and the Scotland national team for eventually figuring this out.
Eventually, yeah. It was a long, painful road. His weaknesses in that pivot were so clear under Ole. But to be fair, Erik ten Hag, despite all the other problems, is credited with finally unlocking his best role in his second season.
Once ten Hag started using him as that box crasher, it became the template.
It did. The Scotland national team then adopted it too, building on his goal-scoring success for United. Before that, even Scotland had him misprofiled. They were using him as a center back sometimes.
Which just begs the question, why did it take so long for multiple top-level coaches, over half a decade, to realize his best asset was his shooting?
And the simple operational answer to that failure at United comes down to one man, Bruno Fernandes.
Yes.
The sources are clear. McTominay could never consistently play his preferred cam role at United because Bruno, who fans call an top 2 cam in the world who literally never got injured, was always in that position.
The number 10 role was permanently locked.
So McTominay, the academy lad who wasn't going to complain, was the easiest one to shunt into those deeper roles where his weaknesses were just fatally exposed.
It was squad economy. They needed a body in defensive midfield. Bruno was too good to move, and McTominay was too loyal to protest.
And here's the beautiful irony the fans have all picked up on. Now Bruno himself is being played in the double pivot instead of the 10.
A perfect full-circle moment of tactical dysfunction.
It is. The role that ruined McTominay's reputation is now being filled by the man whose presence forced him out of his natural position. It says everything about United's struggle for a coherent identity.
And his success in Naples is just down to him finally being put in the right position?
In a league, Serie A, which the sources argue is arguably less physical than the Premier League, which gives him a bit more time and space.
Yeah.
It wasn't magic. He was just finally seen correctly.
Which leads to the most damning critique of all.
Why no one in Academy thought they could tell the coaches of the first team that they have been misusing him for 6 years.
That suggests a profound breakdown, doesn't it? A disconnect.
No. It's a structural failure of communication. If the youth coaches who nurtured him knew his true potential, but that insight never filtered up to Solskjaer, Rangnick, Ten Hag, it implies the first team is operating in a total silo, ignoring the knowledge in its own building.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. Let's move beyond the player to the club's wider decision-making. What does this whole McTominay situation tell us about Manchester United? It feels like more than just one bad transfer.
It absolutely carries that weight. The sources are unified on this now, with hindsight. The sale is widely lamented. It's described as a poor sale and, crucially, a double loss.
Even though some fans admit it felt right at the time.
Yeah, because they wanted change. But in hindsight, the collective feeling is he should have been capped or at least sold for a lot more money, given his age and dedication.
And there's a specific critique of the finances, isn't there? A sort of transfer blunder with a ripple effect.
There is. It's a complex claim, but it needs unpacking. The allegation is this frustrating domino effect. United apparently sold McTominay to free up funds or wages to buy another midfielder, probably Manuel Ugarte.
Right.
Then, in a twist that just infuriated the supporters, it's claimed that PSG, who were also in the market, took the money United had effectively freed up and used it to sign the big Portuguese talent, Joao Neves, with Jorge Mendes pulling the strings.
So the chain is, McTominay leaves, but United end up losing out on 2 targets, all while losing a key academy player. That's institutional incompetence writ large.
That's how it's being interpreted in the source material, yeah. The sale didn't just lose them a dedicated player, it indirectly helped the European rival and stopped United landing a future star. The cost is far more than just the transfer fee.
But the cultural cost seems to be what bothers the fans even more.
Deeply. The sale was short-sighted because the club lost someone invaluable to the culture they are trying to build. We've already established his character. He's an academy player who gets the club ethos.
Wouldn't have kicked up a fuss about game time.
And scored crucial goals, all while on relatively modest wages compared to the big stars. When you're trying to do a cultural reset, losing a homegrown figurehead of professionalism is a massive setback.
Let's just pause on the institutional failures for a second and turn that uncomfortable mirror towards the fans themselves. The sources bring up a really critical point about the toxicity within the MUFC support.
This is a moment for some necessary self-reflection, for sure. One commenter says the immense hate on whoever's doing bad at the time is too much, and that the supporters need to take a good hard look at themselves. They specifically cite the constant slander McTominay got before he left.
It's the hypocrite's viewpoint. The acknowledgement that 90% of you all wanted him gone when he was struggling in that deep role.
And now they're celebrating him as a loyal legend after he's succeeded somewhere else, in a role they never let him play.
So was it just sour grapes or legitimate tactical frustration at the time?
I think the sources suggest it was a volatile mix. The frustration with the midfield pairing was tactically justified, but the criticism of McTominay the person was maybe unnecessarily personal and toxic.
And the praise now is a sort of redemption for that, an acknowledgement that they might have pushed a proper red out the door.
Perhaps. The pressure there is just immense, and it often falls hardest on the local, loyal players when things are going badly.
And McTominay himself highlighted this unique pressure, didn't he? The United scrutiny tax.
He did. The level of attention on anything Manchester United does is just unlike almost any other club on earth.
The sources draw a really compelling comparison to illustrate it.
They do. They talk about the press coverage of someone like Kobbie Manu. His every touch, every decision is constantly talked about, analyzed to death by pundits. But then they contrast it with the relative silence around promising Arsenal youth players.
Like Ethan Nwaneri or Miles Lewis-Skelly.
Exactly, who have apparently fallen off the face of the earth in media terms. The difference in the volume and intensity of coverage is just vast. For a United youth player, every tiny dip in form is national news.
And the same logic is applied to Chelsea, right? Their huge volume of signings just dilutes the scrutiny on any one player.
Whereas at Old Trafford, a struggling academy graduate is put under an intense microscope. The United scrutiny tax means every mistake is amplified. Every misplaced pass is a headline.
So leaving allowed him to step out of that spotlight, find a tactical fit, and just focus on playing football without all that noise.
And that's why the institutional flaw is twofold. First, a breakdown in tactical ID and development in the club. And second, a highly volatile and toxic fan and media culture that makes it incredibly difficult for honest, hardworking players to find their feet.
So we've completed our deep dive into the McTominay saga. And the key findings seem remarkably clear. His success now proves the massive importance of system fit. His ability as a box crasher was just consistently misapplied.
But his handling of the media proves the immense and often undervalued currency of character and loyalty in this hyper-scrutinized modern game.
His legacy at United, even while he's becoming a hero in Naples, seems cemented. He's always a Red.
But his success elsewhere just shines a brighter light on the flaws of his former club, and the desire to bring him back, either as a player or maybe a future coach, is really strong among the fans. He's seen as a rare commodity.
A mature, loyal individual in a squad that's often criticized for lacking exactly that.
He's the prototype of the player the club thought they were building a culture around, even if they couldn't figure out where to play him for 6 years. The whole discussion has moved beyond just football stats now. It's about the core philosophy of Manchester United itself.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, who is hoping to see United get back to where they once were? If Scott McTominay, an academy player with immense loyalty and professionalism, was sold because the club prioritized buying expensive players who arguably didn't fit, does his success now highlight a fundamental flaw not just in United's tactics, but in the club's very vision for what a Manchester United player should be?
It raises a vital question about priorities. Has United been too focused on buying big names that fit an ideal, that Galactico model, rather than developing and properly using the loyal talent they already had that perfectly fits a need? If the goal is culture and stability, maybe the answer was in the building all along, just standing a few yards too deep, and they couldn't see it until he walked out the door. Something to mull over until our next deep dive.